Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today we are solving the Hanayama Helix puzzle, which is a level 5 out of a possible 6 on the Hanayama difficulty scale, which means it's going to be quite tough. It's not the hardest level 6, but there's some level 5s that pretty much should be level 6s. Although on the flip side of that, there's also level 5s that probably should be level 2s. So it's a very mixed bag when it comes to all Hanayama level puzzles, I guess. And that's not necessarily because they are poorly labelled, it's probably more to do with how different people approach different problems. So as always, our aim is to do 3 things. First of all, we're going to attempt to disassemble the 2 Helix puzzle pieces. Then once we've done that, / if we do that, then we'll try and reassemble it back into its original position. And then once we've done that, we will do the easy job of placing it on the leaderboard of difficulty. So at the minute, we've got the easiest puzzle down here, the loop. We've got the hardest puzzle up here in the hourglass, all based on my opinion. And then from left to right, bottom to top, we get progressively more difficult in my opinion. First task, disassemble the Helix puzzle. Okay, so here is the Helix puzzle. As always with Hanayama puzzles, this is an extremely nice, solid, good looking puzzle. But as you may have seen then, this is a complete surprise to me. I did not expect these things to twist around. I didn't know it was 2 pieces, to be honest. Now looking at the box, obviously these 2 pieces just spin around each other, but essentially make up 1 piece. Our aim is to separate the ring from those rotating pieces, I guess. So let's have a read of the box. It says here, the grooves engraved in the 2 rotating boards are called logarithmic spirals. These 2 grooves always cross at right angles. Not 100% sure what that means just yet. And a square hole is formed at their intersection. The goal of this puzzle is to remove the helix ring that goes through that hole. The inspiration of this puzzle is the morning glory. I guess in puzzling terms, morning glory means something different to what I know morning glory as. The puzzle was designed to look like a bud that comes into bloom with twining tendrils. The original concept dates back to 1990, which is before I was born, but it has been enhanced with the addition of several tricky features designed by Akio Yamamoto. So it's going to be quite hard now to keep a track of like where we started. So obviously we need to get back to this position. So we need to make a note of, okay, so on the back piece, make sure there's no other Helix engravings, but we've got a Helix engraving here. I'm not sure if you can see that, so we can just about see that. And as we look at that, we're in this section here. So that's where we're getting back to. Now, given that I didn't expect it to move around like this, it means there's a lot more possibilities for positions than I was expecting. It's probably going to be harder than I was expecting. Not that I expected it to be easy, but this does make it much more interesting. So what I need to find first is where it separates. Where is this? Where it says, and a square hole is formed at their intersection. I mean, is that just talking about these squares in here? Or is there, I don't know, some sort of ultimate square position where it separates from? Although I have just noticed this little groove in here and this groove in here. What do they do? Short answer is I have no idea what they do. For now, I think we're just going to move around and see what we can do, what we can find. And yeah, see if that brings us anything. So I can't really figure out, I'm not sure what these are for yet. Possibly there was something to do with the start position that I missed. But I can't see how when we use those grooves that's beneficial in any way. So what I'm focusing on now is I'm trying to think of where it actually
comes off. Like here, obviously it makes sense if we could get over the edge of these, then it would fall apart or would come apart. So what I'm looking for is there any difference in these edges? Is one shorter than the other, and that's where we separate from? So I think for now what we'll do is just try and work our way around to find that position, or to see if there is one that is just slightly shorter than the other. I'm genuinely really struggling with this one. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to try. Okay, so I'm about half an hour in to attempting to solve this, and I'm not getting anywhere really. I mean, I think it's quite apparent that it's not just, I can't just move around. There's not a difference, as if we move around we don't really get anywhere. But the only extra thing that I have just noticed is that this one here, because of this groove in here, this bit here relative to these other 4 bits is shorter. And again, that's probably important in some fashion, either that being smaller or that being there in the first place. That is important somehow, I'm sure of it, but I don't know how yet. I do not know how, but we will get there eventually. I'm fairly certain there's got to be something that we have to line both of them up, but I don't see how, because obviously if we line this one up, it's not like we can line that one up at the same time because of how long this ring / spiral is. I just don't fully understand where this one comes apart yet. I'm not sure how it separates. I don't think it can be just off the side. I've tried sort of looking at it as we're looking at it now and seeing if there's any apparent difference between the sides, and yeah, there just doesn't seem to be. Okay, so what do we know so far? We know that we don't know much, to be honest. We know that these grooves must have something to do with it, because they're the only different parts around here. We think that there isn't a part of one of these sides that isn't smaller than the other, so we can't just slide off the edge. We think, we don't know that for certain. And that's it really. That's all we know so far after 40 plus minutes of trying to figure this one out. This is a tough one. As soon as we figure out, or we need to figure out, or it will be very helpful if we figure out how the ring actually separates. If we can figure that out, we can then work backwards, but this feels like one that we're not going to figure it out, and we're almost going to stumble across how it solves. One thing that I have just noticed is that on both sides there is one of these longer bits. So I've been focusing on these 2 shorter bits, thinking that because those were the different parts that something had to happen there, because they had this groove in here as well. But looking at, from a side-on view is when I spotted it, but I should have seen it from a bird's eye view as well, is this little gap in here. That must be important, because there's one on both sides, but yeah. So we've got a new thing to try out. So here I'm thinking, what if is there a way of combining the 2 things? So we've got a groove on one side, or we're in one of the grooves on one side, and we're in the piece that has the sort of slit out of it on the other side. Now again, that difference there in the length, or the extra length, confuses me as to how it can be that long and then have an effect on whether it comes out or not. Mainly because I can't think of that end move. I don't know how it separates. Okay, so I have an idea. And my idea is that it comes out by turning the ring sideways. I think this bit and possibly that bit, or maybe these bits in here, allow us to turn the ring so that we actually slide like over that gap through there, or that gap through there. I'm quite excited now because that feels quite promising, or quite possible. Another question is going to be finding the angle at which that happens. Oh, I think this is it. Is that it? Wait. So we can get twist. Ah, so the twist. So my mistake has been thinking that this groove is there to help the twist, so almost twisting this way, but this, where is it? That lets it go sideways, right? I'm getting cocky, but then can we carry on, rotate around until so we seem to be stuck there now. Oh, and we separate from there. Wow, that was tough. That was extremely tough. Right, we'll figure that out in a bit. Oh, yeah, that is tough. That is tough. And this, I'm not sure how stiff this was at the start, but it's probably quite loose after what, over an hour of playing with it. It's not quite a fidget spinner spin, but yeah. I want to be happier, but I'm quite tired after that one. That is that's tough to find. That was tough. Right, we finally separated it. We'll hopefully take nowhere near as long as that to put it back together. I don't think the original position matters too much in terms of as long as it's back in. Well, I think we'll still do it based on that. It should be easy to do once we get it back together. So we'll put it back together, and then placing it on the leaderboard is now going to be quite interesting because this is a tough one. So we're potentially looking top shelf, and that's before I've even completed it, before we put it back together. But we'll do that first. So I think first I just need to get back to sort of where it was in here. It's not really, it wasn't a very conventional way of coming off. I feel like it was just as straightforward as that. Into there, and then it was like a few twists around here to get back to that position. So that's quite simple. But imagine how specific the actual designing of this has got to be for that to happen. Yeah, based on looking at the box here, that is the original position. Basing it on that, and I know from when we started that Helix engraving was there. Right, so super quick to put back together, but that doesn't take away from how hard this one was to separate. Oh. Alright, Helix puzzle done. Well, that took a lot longer than expected, and that's probably the longest puzzle that the longest it's taken to solve a puzzle
for a long time. I think the next most recent long one was maybe the chain, which took around an hour, I think, off the top of my head. But that was tough. That was a tough one to find. It's not like we made progress as we were going along, because, well, we could see that from how long it took back to get it back to its original position, which was no time at all, which shows you, yeah, if you know how to do it, this one isn't going to take that long. But finding that one move, and I guess for me, I gradually noticed all the differences on the things. It took me far too long to notice those two ridges that were missing on each side, or the gaps in the ridges on just one of those pieces. But even then, they didn't work how I thought they might work when I'd spotted them. Which probably means that it's possible to do that twist and get into that position from quite a few different positions. But then it obviously has to be the right two on those both sides to then separate. Long story short, the Helix puzzle is a very tough one. I found it as a very tough one. So when it comes to placing it on the leaderboard, we're going to start top row, and we're going to start from the left hand side and work our way right, I think. So the chain puzzle was the last, that's the level 6 puzzle. That's the last level 6 puzzle that we had to do, and the most recent of all the top shelf puzzles that we have done. And I think the Helix beats it. I think the Helix is harder than the chain. Next one's the U and U puzzle, which is actually a level 4 puzzle, I think. It's a challenge in level 4. But is it harder or easier than the Helix? Or is the Helix harder or easier than the U and U? I'm not sure. We'll come back to that one. The padlock puzzle. The padlock was the first puzzle the first Hanayama puzzle I ever solved. That was the first one added to this collection, which I always find hard to rank against. Obviously, going in blind, no experience of solving any other Hanayamas. Not that there's many with similar solutions, but it definitely does help knowing or having practiced previously. If we jump above that, it's the cylinder. The Helix isn't harder than the cylinder. I think we're gonna stay easier than the padlock. There's a bit of nostalgia in that decision, being the first puzzle that we solved. But that was a tough one, a very tough one. It definitely took longer than it took me to do the Helix just then. But is it harder or easier than the U and U puzzle? I think based on the awkwardness of the U and U, I think that one's gonna keep its place as being tougher. So the Helix is gonna go between the U and U and the chain puzzle. So there it is, the Helix puzzle is now done. We've disassembled it, we've reassembled it, we've put it on the leaderboard. That was a good, fun challenge. Satisfied with the solution, and that is us done for today. Thank you very much for being here. Let me know what you think of the Helix puzzle in the comments below. And if you want to see me solve any more of these Hanayama puzzles or the step-by-step solutions to each and every one of them, then be sure to click my face here to subscribe, and I will see you next time. Peace.